stuff will go where, like. Oh, nice. Mr. Ryan, Mr. Lewis, is are both male staff, of course. Well, quite nice, actually.
When you had a problem or anything, who did you talk to about your problems?
Jonah?
Jonah was the nurse there, was she?
Yeah.
Were you allowed to let people know how you feel at the hospital?
I told them if I didn't like it, it was too bad. I told them what I think. They are there to listen. But did they listen? Listen was another thing.
So they wouldn't listen to you very much? How
No.
did that make you feel? How did that make you feel, Matt?
Angry.
Yeah?
Very angry.
Well, when you work with people for 10 years of their lives and you grow up with them, as I said, I started when I was about 21 and finished at Ely Hospital when I was 31, and I was learning about my life and my job and living in Cardiff and living in Wales, and I was helping other people to learn about their lives and their lives in Wales, and you can't help but like them and get very fond of them. It's strange really, because as a professional you're always told not to get close to clients and to keep a distance, but I think working with learning disabilities and working in hospitals, you couldn't help. It's a different kind of relationship. You have to keep a professional relationship, but also be friendly and enjoy people's company too. But the problem is sometimes is people with learning disabilities have been in institutions all those years. The first thing they want is real relationships. They want real friendships, real love and real care, and I think that was important to me as well. So you can't help getting wound up and bound up with their lives. And in fact, I live in Canton, and I've lived in Canton for 30 odd years now, and many of the people that left Ely Hospital because of the closure are now living in Canton, and I see them every day anyway, in my daily life anyway, so yeah, which is lovely to see. How were they treated? Well, I think if you talk to residents, they were the best to ask. When I first went there, you've got to remember, went there when the inquiry just finished, and lots of therapists were employed at Ely Hospitals to come and help change what happened in the inquiry. It was the first hospital in the UK to have an inquiry, and it really started the whole ball rolling for the closure of hospital and starting to look at people's rights. And that inquiry said the place was awful. It said it was the barbed wire in the newspapers. It had barbed wire around the walls, and that the staff treated them badly. And that's what people like to think as well. And I think a lot of bad treatment did go on there, but also a lot of really, really good treatment went on there. Ely Hospital was full of people who had been working there for years and years and years and years, and their families and their brothers and their sisters, their uncles, their mothers and nieces and nephews, they all worked there too. So the carers, the staff were also part of that community as well. And there was some really good, wonderful people in there. Equally though, I think they was not very knowledgeable. They didn't know about learning disabilities. The wards, there were 60 people on a ward. There was all male, all female. Behavioural modification was used badly. But then there was very difficult wards there, and you'd only have one member of staff for 30 or 40 people, and there may be disturbed behaviour on there. What do you do? I'm not excusing treating people badly, but I'm just trying to see the why it happened really. And yes, like in all places, there was abuse and difficult problems as well. And I think lots of people try to look at things in that way, but they forget all the really good stuff as well. There's really brilliant stuff going on as well. And one hell of a lot of change needed to go on. And one of it was empowering the clients and not seeing the nurses and the doctors and the therapists as the bosses, but actually the clients are the bosses. And that's one of the major changes that needed to happen, and why in fact hospitals needed to close. And I think as an art therapist, where the mark that a person makes on the paper and giving voice to feelings and emotions. That was one of the most important things for me, is to give people voice and to empower them, because they were so disempowered by the institutions. The institution was cruel rather than the people, although, you know, like everywhere there's cruel people as well. It's all too easy when I've talked to other people in the past, oh, they were horrible, and their experience, some of them was horrible, but they only remember the horrible times. What about all the good times, you know?
What do you think was the most important part of your job and why?
I think being a friend to the residents, because not many of the residents had friends and family that came to visit. So it was being a friend and helping them to do what they wanted to do.
What was your boss like?
I had two different bosses and they were both very nice. One didn't work in Ely Hospital, she worked in Whitchurch. And the other was the chief nursing officer in the hospital, and he was very nice as well.
Where do you work now?
I don't, I'm retired.
Did you like any of the residents?
Yes.
Tell us why you liked that person.
Right, yes, I liked a lot of them. In fact, I liked most of them. There were one or two, because you can't like everybody, but because they were happy most of the time. They liked to try new things. They liked you to talk to them and play with them and do lots of things. And I had two young children at the time, and they used to come in quite often with me, and they liked the residents as well. They used to love to come and play with them.
How were the residents treated by staff?
Most staff treated them very nice, as if they were their own family. Again, just like you get with ordinary people, some people were a bit brusque maybe, got a bit impatient when they were tired, but on the whole I think they treated them as if they were their own family.
I was secretary to the matron, and I mean that was lovely, because she so loved the patients, and they used to come to her. They'd come up the corridor to her door, you see, and she always kept a tin of biscuits in her drawer for them.
Yeah.
And, you know, if she wasn't there, well, I could give them a biscuit, sort of thing, like, you know.
Yeah.
But she was so kind. And, you know, people talk about matrons, but
Yeah.
she may have been strict with the staff, but she was certainly kind to the patients. Like, when they opened, I mean, one memory I've got is when they opened the UHW, the Queen came to open it, you see. And so naturally on the way back from the hospital to the airport, she would be passing Ely Hospital. Well, the suggestion was that the patients stand behind the railings and, you know, wave to her. And Mrs. Pring said to me, she said, "Indeed they're not," she said. She said that, and it ended up that the patients were standing on the pavement to wave to the Queen. We were standing behind the railings.
Oh, that's a nice story, isn't it?
and she was, that was her way, you know.
Yeah.
She was so kind to them, like, you know. When Mrs. Pring retired, I then was secretary to the psychologist. And I don't know really which I preferred more, because he was a marvellous psychologist.
Yeah.
And he believed that there was no need for Down syndrome people to be in such a hospital, you see.
Mm-hmm.
But he said that the parents needed all the help they could get to keep them at home. So he used to have classes down at Press Wilfer in Clive Road. And he used to meet the parents and the children in the afternoons. Well, I only worked in the mornings, you see. So he said, "You can come along," he said, "and look after the children for me." And I wasn't paid for it at all, but I just used to go and look after the children, you see. Well, this one afternoon, I had 3 at different ages, you know, up to about 3 sort of thing, you see, even a baby in arms. so it was a bit much, and I didn't realise that they were looking at me through a two-sided window, a mirror-like window, you know. And anyway, in the end, the three babies were crying, three children were crying, because they each wanted to do their own thing, you know. And so I said to a friend, I said, why don't you come along and help? And she did, and we both did it for nothing, like, you know, it was sort of so lovely. Like, that was another letter I was looking for yesterday, that I wrote to his mother when he died, you know. And oh, I had this lovely letter back, didn't I? And you know, she said what a happy life he'd had in the hospital, and how kind particular staff had been to him. She said about how the staff had taken him abroad somewhere on this holiday, and saying what a lovely holiday he'd had, you know. And oh, he was a wicked little
He called
thing.
her the Queen, didn't he?
Oh, he called his mother the Queen.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I think the staff were treated with respect, and I guess we demanded respect from a lot of the residents there. And I guess a lot of the staff, I know people may be surprised at this, but they did treat many of the residents with respect. Unfortunately, and I was the union rep, I represented a lot of nurses and other staff members who didn't treat people with respect. For example, people who'd been, they would abuse some of the clients. You know, I was involved in issues around stealing property. There was issues with people physically assaulting residents. We had a case where one of the staff members actually raped one of the residents there. It was the whole conundrum, and I guess one of the reasons why I left the union is because I was getting a fairly distorted view, because that wasn't the sum of it, but obviously those types of incidents hit the headlines and gave people a different perspective. We had two wards there who were very progressive. One of the charge nurses had been to Canada and had brought back some of the ideas around at the time in terms of taking people into the community. You know, I remember sitting on the weekends having to come in at 9 o'clock, take clients out in the community all day and come back at 6. We had a token economy system there. They had the freedom of choice. They could come in and out. You know, they had personal choices, lockers as best you can. You choose the clothes. I imagine the public thought we chained people, put them in straight jackets and all sorts of things. Seclusion, you know, over the years, seclusion diminished. When I first started, we used straight jackets, but then, you know, over a period of time, that sort of phased out. Even medication, there was less and less medication. New medication came on the scene. It wasn't sort of more negative side effects as in the past. So, and of course they took on student nurses. We had student nurse trained in there. We had more education. We had the school of nursing based in the hospital. Also working with numerous members of staff, you know, all different. There must have been about an equal number of staff working there, you know, 400 to 500 nurses, auxiliaries, cleaners, cooks. You know, we were just like one big family there. I suppose essentially it was part of this very large family. Right, we're all there for a purpose in terms of nursing individuals or containing people, but you know, and to develop your nursing skills. But essentially, we saw it as a safe environment, and I guess majority of the time a happy environment.